Welcome to the More Demand podcast, where we help you generate more demand for your products and services. Every episode we give you tips, tricks and tutorials on how to get the best out of your digital marketing. Less frustration, more demand. Here's your host Lawrence Howlett with this week's freshest tips.
Hello and welcome to the More Demand podcast, episode number 19. Before we dive in this week, I just want to give a big shout out to my very good friends Mike and Danielle, who have literally just had their firstborn. I've just been told by my wife, so congratulations guys, and we wish you all the best. So back to the show. This week I'll be talking with Mike Street all about how web analytics can improve your conversions, focus your attention and get the fundamentals of your business right. Mike is also the host of a brilliant podcast called Smart Brown Voices, where he interviews business owners and artists of colour origin. So let's welcome Mike onto the call and dive in to those analytical details. Hi Mike, thanks so much for being on the show today, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks to all of your listeners for listening to this podcast episode.
Yeah, no worries. So today we're going to talk about Google Analytics and how it can help plug a leaky sales funnel or discover keyword opportunities and dive into the real detail of analytics. But before we do that, I just wanted to touch on the fact that you've got your own business podcast called the Smart Brown Voices, and I'd love you to fill us in a little bit about why you created that podcast and the impact that it's had on you and your audience.
Well, Smart Brown Voices changed my life. I kind of got bored with blogging, and, I wanted to kind of do something a bit different. I wasn't ready to start video blogging as of yet, and still been kind of struggling with that. But podcasting has kind of become, the happy medium for me because it gives me the opportunity to talk to a lot of amazing people. And also put a lot of great content for people to learn from. One of the things that I saw that was missing from the iTunes store was just a lot of diversity, especially when you go to like the marketing section. You just see kind of like the same people over and over again. So I wanted to bring to light just a lot of the smart people that I knew who are African American, Latino, who are working in marketing, PR, our startup owners, business owners, or even artists. I do interview a lot of, artists on my show as well, and give them the opportunity to, share their expertise as well, so people can kind of learn from, a diverse array of people.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, that's a really, really good point about, you go in there and you see the Amy Porterfields of the world, the Pat Flynn's, all those guys, John Lee Dumas, everyone that's killing it at the moment. So it's really nice to have that diversity and have a podcast that, picks out a particular subject and dives into that with a particular niche. I think that's a really, really good idea. And what's some of the sort of takeaways or the highlights that you've had from running your own podcast?
Well, I got several jobs.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
From the podcast, so I've been able to make some money from people listening to the show. But I think overall, like what brings me the most pleasure and joy is just when people come. Like I was at South by Southwest last year. Several people came up to me on the street and said, they've been listening to the podcast. They really enjoyed, what I was doing. I've had people send me tweets or just, emails and say, hey, I really appreciate, you giving us the opportunity to kind of share our expertise and giving us the platform. And, I'm trying to fill a void where, especially in this content space where there's so many different people, but, and there's like other entities like a Black enterprise or things of that nature, but I think like there's still kind of a gap and a void. And so I'm trying to fill that space and just bring a lot of exposure to a lot of the other stuff that people of color are actually working on. Because, there's a lot of amazing things going on, but people just don't get the opportunity to get, that mainstream exposure.
Yeah, sure. So tell me a bit more about, how you think that's, slightly different from the mainstream, if you will.
Well, I think, we're bringing a lot of our different experiences to the table, especially when you start to look at, things like being culturally relevant, cultural competency. in the space. There's tons of brands who have been, dragged through the mud on social media for things like cultural appropriation and things of that nature. And so I think what our experiences bring to the table is that we're able to give it kind of a 360 view and approach, where a lot of other companies are, kind of just very narrow focused in what they're doing. And so I think a lot of their experiences that people of color bring to the table, we're kind of able to, think a little bit broader on like, how does this affect our communities? How are we going to see this advertising? Is this something that might be seen negative? And bring that litmus test that a lot of these, rooms aren't thinking about. And then it kind of, once they put something out there in the market space, it kind of backfires on them, because our Black community in particular, we love to jump on Twitter and call out people, and that's what's been happening as of late.
Yeah, so that sort of neatly ties us on to analytics and how we can start to dissect who exactly is on our website and what they're doing on that website, and then how can we interact and engage with them, I suppose. So I'm not sure if Google Analytics goes into that much depth about color, but I know we can certainly get demographics out of analytics. So Mike, I just wondered if you could talk us through some of the key aspects and principles of Google Analytics and how we can use that to help bottom line essentially and generate more sales leads.
Well, first of all, I think Google Analytics is, one of the most important tools to have in your toolbox, and people remember it's free. There are tons of expensive and paid tools out there, but Google Analytics is a free tool that you can, pretty much get set up very quickly. But it's extremely powerful, especially if you have a sales funnel and you're looking to really kind of track conversions, track drop off, even track your sales. It's a really important tool for you to really kind of just dig deep into and really figure out, like, how do I make this work for me? I mean, I think one of the key things is to set up all of your conversion and tracking goals in Google Analytics, so you can exactly see like who's visiting your website or who's signing up for your mailing list, who's purchasing from you. You want to know, like, are they abandoning their shopping cart? You want to know, like, this person checked out and they made a $50 purchase. Those are the type of goal setting that you can actually set up in Google Analytics pretty easily, and Google Analytics actually provides different templates for you to kind of just plug in the numbers and set that up for yourself, and then just say like, hey, track this page. And then you'll start to get a really good understanding and picture of like who your audience is, who's actually purchasing from you. I can tell you a story. I used to work, this time last year, I was working for a brand that was in the beauty space. And Google Analytics really helped me to understand, the purchase behavior of of the consumer, because, most people think that people are buying everything from their desktop, but that's actually not the case. What I was seeing was that over 70% of our audience was buying and purchasing the product late at night and from their mobile phone. And so what I was able to do was and one of the things I first did was, it was like taking like at least 7 or 8 steps for someone to actually purchase the product. So what we did is went and kind of optimized that path of purchase and bring it down to 4 steps instead of 7. And that really helped to increase the conversion rate, so much so that we made over $4 million, in that month after just making those mobile optimizations. So you really have to look at your audience, look at how they actually purchase your product, look at what time of day they're purchasing your product, and really help them, help them make it super easy for them to get what they want.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a similar story where we've just in the process of redeveloping a website for a company that sells blankets for children, and you find that you go into a normal job and you think, right, we're going to do a nice desktop design, but actually 90% of their audience are mums on mobiles. So it would be completely irrelevant to build an elaborate desktop site. What we've actually got to do is build a really, really highly optimized mobile site, because that's what device their audience is using. And actually it's got to be used in one hand as well, because most of them have got the baby in the other arm as well. So it's got to be thumb friendly, not just thumb and finger friendly. So and we got that from analytics and looking at what device they were using. So I think that's in the audience section, if I'm correct.
Yes, that's correct. You can see all of those like granular details. You can see if they're iPhone users. You can see, you can really kind of start drilling down to the the nitty gritty of of your audience, and really start to optimize it for it. And you can even start peppering some of that stuff into the messaging that you're putting out there, into the creative ads that you're putting out there as well. If you know that your audience are Android users, then you might want to place an Android phone in that advertising versus having an iPhone. It's those little kind of tweaks that you can really learn on the back end of Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics or all of that stuff that really, can go a long way with your conversion.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of a very advanced point that, just creating that familiarization, with the device that they're using and showing that picture, of an Android over an iPhone, that can really just help boost those little, 0.5 of a conversion percentage or something like that.
Yeah, because you want your audience to really feel that that your brand understands who they are, and they want to see themselves reflected in that advertising. So the closer you can really hone in on who your core consumer is, the better off you will be, and that really helps when you're going to select pictures, when you're going to put all of your ad copy together. All of that stuff really really matters.
Yeah, so talk me through a typical campaign for, let's say, a small service-based business, and what a typical campaign might look like, and how you would, first of all, just audit the website, I guess, with their existing analytics data, and then how you'd monitor that moving forward.
Well, if you're a service-based business, maybe you're providing like a website or web design or some kind of consulting. What you're looking for is, active leads. So you're looking for people who are, particularly searching for your product or your service. And then, someone that's going to probably start at the top of your sales funnel, which is a simple touch point, which is, signing up for an email newsletter or for email list. Or a lot of people today are doing courses and adding people for like a free video course or free email course. So that's kind of like at the top of your funnel, so that's where we'll set up those different event triggers on the back end, because we want to know, X person came from Google search, or X person came from Twitter or Facebook. And so we want to know like all of those things, because we got to see like, what's converting. Like I've seen lots of websites where they get tons of traffic from places like Facebook, and they might get almost zero from Twitter or a little bit from Instagram. And so you kind of have to know, like, where do you need to really spend your money effectively? Because, a lot of businesses, they waste money trying to, kick up audiences in other places. I think, if it works in this place, like, just do more at what works. So I think, again, like setting up those event triggers for what exactly matters for your conversion rate. So if you're a service business, you're opting them into your mailing list and you're starting that relationship from there. Then you're getting them to kind of look at your expertise and kind of evaluate, like, what's the benefit of signing up for this service, and how is it going to matter for the bottom line. And so we'll start looking at all of that kind of stuff, and then setting up those event triggers so we can kind of see, like, has this person revisited the website? What content has come back to them, or what content are they looking at that's, causing them to either become a repeat visitor or actually finally getting their conversion over into, whatever it is, the product that you're offering. So you have to kind of just think a lot about your consumer, think about that persona, and what's going to really kind of get them to really, convert. So really start looking at that stuff, looking at your copy, looking at your pictures, looking at, again, like what time, they come on the website. Like for me, like sometimes I get so obsessed with analytics, like I'm watching like the real time Google Analytics tracker just to see like what are people clicking on. But it's really interesting. And there's other sites out there too where you can start to look at other things like heat map analysis, because you want to know like where are they actually clicking at. Heat mapping is really great because you can see if you need to actually move the position of your opt-in box to a different location if you know that most of your people are clicking on the right side versus the left side.
Yeah, I mean, there's also some interesting thought out there. I was reading the other day that sidebars really don't matter because the eye tracking software and the heat maps have proven that no one's looking at the sidebar yet. Us as designers and webmasters always love a good sidebar. We think our call to actions go nicely in there. But breaking that mold with analytics, you can actually dive into that detail and find out if anyone is clicking that sidebar call to action that you've so lovingly put together.
And I think you bring up a good point, because I think it's also really, really good for people to experiment and set up different experiments just to see like what's going to matter for your conversion rate. So do A/B testing, like, set up one page where, you have like a big call to action and just an opt-in box, or set up another page where you have more text or more context around, or an article, or, even do a lot of stuff with video. Start to think about like what kind of experiments and what kind of tests can you run on your site and track through Google Analytics to see what's going to kick up your conversion rate or what's going to kick up your sales.
Yeah,
I remember one thing we did was we started setting up just really concise product-based pages where we just have one product on it and started promoting those pages. And we saw a lot of higher conversion rates because we were able to kind of really drill into the products that people liked, because we could see on the back end of analytics that, we had more, of the supplement sales versus the cosmetics. So we were able to kind of put more money into one place and then increase our revenue that way.
Yeah, and I mean, with the A/B testing, as you mentioned there, you want to do big theory changes. We're not talking about the tiny little things like the color of a button. Yes, it might affect the conversion rate, but really I think we need to be testing those big things, like you say, just a single image with your opt-in form and minimal text versus a really long form sales page. So it's testing those hypotheses that matters when you're A/B testing. So it's just to get that mindset right, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's where and there's tons of books out there. So if you guys out there listening, like, look up growth hacking and look up different growth hacking experiments you can kind of do on your website, because that stuff, can really make the difference in your sales. Because like I had one client who was, spending a huge amount of money, but wasn't getting the conversion on some of the social ads we were doing. And we decided to really just, let's just stop wasting that money. Let's do something different. Let's set up different experiments so that we can actually see, what does our audience want? Where do they shop from? What's going to be the converter for us? And, we found that, spending less money on Twitter and pushing more into Facebook, really worked. Twitter is a little bit well, to me, Twitter is a lot more expensive to do advertising on than Facebook. I'm able to, on some of my campaigns, I'm able to get a 2% click-through rate cost, or I'm doing a lot of video advertising right now, and the cost for that is astronomically low. So you can really have a small budget but make a really big impact on your traffic and really drive your target audience. But again, you have to, start thinking about like, that funnel, where do I need to hit them at? Where do they live? And start being start thinking like your consumer, and try to remove everything out of their way that's going to annoy them, and just help them understand what your product is and get them to that purchase faster.
Yeah, so I mean, with those video ads, are you talking about video ads on YouTube or on Facebook? And then what analytics tools can you use to say, how much of the video have they watched, or did they click through on a link? How do you tie in analytics with that video marketing piece?
Well, every platform at this point has some kind of a video. YouTube is the most advanced because you can really see a lot of detail. You can see where the person stopped watching their video. You can see, pretty much everything about your video. You can see if they watched it all the way to the end. So it's just a lot of things that you can do. Like Facebook video, I'm getting a lot more video views with. I think a lot of that has to do with the autoplay, because people can really, the video can pop into the stream and it automatically starts playing. So you can't see as much detail with that. You can kind of just see impressions and engagement and video views. But I think, video is extremely powerful, and it can really drive like a lot of visibility if you really need to drive awareness. And this is, again, where it ties back into Google Analytics, because what you could do as a test is, you could put your same video, you could put one on YouTube and then one on Twitter and then one on Facebook, and kind of see like which one is actually driving a click through from the video to your website. And then that's where you can go in the back end of Google Analytics and start to look at that referring traffic, and then see, who are those people, like see if any people are actually converting. Because you may find that, Facebook drives a lot of traffic, but those people may not be actually converting for your product versus, the people who are coming from Twitter. It might not be as much, engagement or eyeballs on that stuff, but it might be a lot of those people are actually buying the product.
Yeah, so they're more quality.
So you have to figure out like where's your quality leads coming from as well. Because again, like for me, like Twitter has been really expensive because their CPM is a bit different, especially when experimenting with a video. But I've had a lot of success with getting people to engage with content on that platform, especially right now. A lot of people aren't doing video marketing on Twitter, so I think there's an opportunity there to kind of differentiate yourself. If you can kind of figure out like what your audience likes to watch and then publish that type of content on Twitter, and then figure out, how can I get them to convert. So you have to kind of make all of these things, interconnected together. So that's why, like, things like Google Analytics is really important, because you really need to know, like, what's your major traffic source? What device are they using? What browser are they using? You need to optimize for all of those things. You need to test, does a landing page work better versus putting out a piece of content for your conversion rate. All those people, are they returning visitors, or are you getting a lot of new traffic? Those are like some of the things you have to look from a segmentation standpoint to see, again, like what is really working.
Yeah, so with that segmentation piece, what sort of metrics could you pull out of an analytical tool to say, right, I'm going to I've got the blog, I've been blogging for over a year, and I want to now really understand about my audience and how they're consuming that content, and what opportunities I've got to create some different content that might help engage them a little bit more.
Yeah, I think with that segmentation, like you can really start to hone in on your audience's needs and wants, and why they're actually there and why they're actually purchasing your product. Because you can kind of, you'll be able to start to see their path of what they do once they land on your site. You'll be able to kind of start tracking, like, some, if they land from a landing page, they may click over to an article, or are they clicking over to watch a video content? Or did they click from your landing page over to some kind of tutorial or things of that nature? Like, you'll start to kind of see a path and a pattern emerge as you start to dig heavily into your analytics more, and then that should inform you on what types of content like you should be publishing. It's a lot of people swear by articles, but I'm seeing a lot more conversion with, video content. And I think everyone is seeing a lot more engagement around video. Um,
Yeah, and video doesn't have to be expensive, does it? Video, you can grab the iPhone and shoot straight away.
yeah, like I was playing around with one of Facebook. Facebook has like this new slideshow feature where you can just upload seven pictures and make like a quick little 15-second video. So I made a video doing with a couple of pictures around a celebrity who had just passed, kind of just as a tribute because it was somebody that I liked. And then maybe an hour later, it kind of just took off like wildfire. So it got it was about 2.6 million reach with that one little short video clip, and I got over 500,000 video views. And it's just a seven picture, no audio, little little slideshow presentation. So just imagine like what you could do if you actually create something that is really valuable for your audience, something that's really shareable for your audience, and then has all the funnel stuff built in, so that you have a clickable link within that video that's in the copy, and they can kind of click over to learn more about your product. You can really drive a lot of traffic with creating the right piece of content as well.
Yeah, and I think that works for, any industry really. You don't have to, even if you're in one of the quote unquote boring industries, you can make anything exciting with video. Like for example, even we had a website that sold knitting wool and things like that, and you think, oh, how are you going to make that exciting? But actually with video, you can do lessons of how to knit a jumper, or how to knit a baby's hat, or all those things that the audience is actually going to be really excited about, and bring them to your site, show yourself as an authority, and then obviously on the back of that you then want to be tying into a sales funnel, and then obviously making a purchase. But with analytics, you can then say, right, well, that video series isn't quite working, but, maybe this blog post is, or, whichever way around it is.
Yep, exactly. I mean, again, like if you're not opening up your analytics, especially your Google Analytics on a day-to-day basis, I think you're missing out on opportunities. I think you need to, as a business owner, you need to carve out time. And this could be something that you have, one of your staffers do, but you need to figure out like what are those metrics that really matter the most to this business, and set out a time to really sit down and look at them. Set up a report that you can have sent to yourself, or that you put together, and you can start to go through all of those metrics that matter, because that's the only way you're going to really make any growth and any impact on your business, is to really pay attention to the numbers. And I think that's one of the things that, as I talk to startup owners or small business owners, like they really struggle with, kind of all the metrics part around it. Like they're great at what they do. But, when it starts to coming down to those numbers, they kind of get a little overwhelmed by just everything that's going on. So I say, in the beginning, like really keep it simple for yourself. Again, figure out what's those 2 or 3 key goals that you need to accomplish in order to get from $10,000 to $1 million. Like, figure out that. Figure out, like, what are your big traffic converters? Like, what are those places that really, give you the most bang for your buck? And, like, figure out, like, how to maximize upon those opportunities. Because what I see every day is a lot of people are jumping into like social media and platforms, and they still haven't even figured out the basics of their business yet. And they're just piling on more and more stuff. And it was like, you're just getting overwhelmed when you haven't solved, for X yet.
Yeah, you haven't sorted the fundamentals and the foundations. And I think, that's a great way to summarize the show, really, of going back to basics, figuring out, the right foundations for the campaign. What are the really, really important metrics to take you to that next level? Even if you're just beginning and it's the first level, or if you're 5 levels up and you want to go from that, as you say, 100k to 1 million, having the foundations there is super, super important. So just before we wrap up the show, I just wanted to ask you some, outside of Google Analytics, what are some other tools in your daily toolbox that you use use on an analytical standpoint?
Well, one, like every platform out there has at least a basic level free to use metrics tools, and it baffles me that most people have never even opened up their Facebook analytics to see what's going on in the back end of their Facebook business page. So I would definitely start there. Like, go to every platform that you feel matters, or if you are, go to your Google Analytics and see like what are the top social platforms that are driving traffic to your website or your business, and look at your metrics for those places, and look and see like what's happening, like what kind of content was resonating with your audience. Like, make sure you learn those basic free fundamentals for all of these social media platforms first. Then I would move into some of the more advanced tools. Like, so I work for a marketing agency, so we use a lot of enterprise tools. I'm a huge NetBase fan, because it lets me do a lot of audience building and segmentation, especially since I spend a lot of time doing campaigns that are social media focused. So having all of that social data and having access to the Twitter firehole is really important for me, because I can start to look at trends and patterns, and I can look up influencers for my audience that matter for the business, because I'm trying to either work with those influencers or get in front of those people, because I want to do some kind of partnership so that we can have an alliance for the product. But some other places that I like is there's a tool called Sumall, which is really good, where you can kind of just get basic metrics for your business. But I would think there's lots of free tools out there, that come, already with things that you're doing every day. Make sure you kind of know those insides and out. So go into Facebook Analytics, open up Twitter Analytics, and look what's happening with your Twitter audience. There's actually a little panel on Twitter that lets you know like what keywords resonate for your Twitter account. So then if you know that your Twitter account has an affinity for business articles or social media articles, then you should be publishing more of that stuff. I think those are, some of the main things that I, really recommend. Because I think also a lot of people get bogged down with like too many tools. And again, they start getting overwhelmed with all of these tools. And I was like, the tool's not going to save your business. It's like you have to, figure out the fundamentals and figure out your consumer and figure out that path and that funnel to get them, from wherever they are to your product and that ultimately to that sale.
Yeah, I mean that's a great way to sort of summarize that up, and it's almost like all the tools that the carpenter has got, but it's never going to make a beautiful wood piece unless the carpenter's there and he knows what he's doing. So you've got to have the fundamentals there, the plan, and then you use the tools to execute that plan. So Mike, well, thank you very much for walking us through analytics journey. I think it's been a good one today. So I just wanted to allow you to, tell our audience where they could learn more about Mike, more about your podcast, and reach out if they need.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. So if you guys listening out there want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at pretty much all over the web at Mr. Mike Street. My website is mrmikestreet.com. Also run a WordPress design business, which is called SF1M Creative. And then you can listen to my podcast at smartbrownvoices.com. Thanks so much.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Thank you very much for joining us this week, Mike. And More Demand listeners, I'll make sure to see you next Wednesday for another episode of the More Demand podcast. Until then, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the More Demand podcast. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on iTunes and get the latest episode direct to your device every Wednesday.